It's great to see you guys here. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for worshiping with us today. If I've not met you yet, my name is Joel Wood. I'm the lead pastor here at Lighthouse. So whether you're here, thanks for being here. If you're watching online, thanks for tuning in or typing in or going to the web address today, however it is. We're just glad that you're here and worshiping together today. We are continuing today in a series that we've been in for the last several weeks called Masterclass. The reason we've been in this series is because we believe a few things to be true about Jesus. And one of the things we believe is that Jesus is probably the best teacher to ever walk this earth, right? I mean, we know that his disciples called him rabbi, which is Jewish for teacher. And we believe that if Jesus taught, then we probably have something to learn from him. Amen? So we've been in Luke chapter 7 and 8 and working through these passages in Luke and trying to learn what Jesus has to teach us. So we'll continue in Luke 8 here in just a second. So if you want to go ahead and turn there, you can. Before we do, though, I want to show you a video. And before I show you this video, I want to preface this, right? What you're about to see is a Super Bowl ad for Snickers. And for those of you who saw the ad, you will immediately recognize it's actually kind of spoofing off of a TV show from a previous generation. And I will call him out again for the second time this morning. Our worship pastor, Josh Fossler, had no idea what TV show this was. And when you see this, you're going to judge him a little bit, and that's okay. So here we go. Here's the clip.
Marcia, what happened?
Peter hit me in the nose with a football. I can't go to the desk like this.
Well, I'm sure it was an accident, sweetheart.
An eye for an eye. That's what Dad always says.
I never said that, honey.
Shut up! Time to teach Peter a lesson.
Marcia, eat a Snickers.
Why?
You get a little hostile when you're hungry. Better? Better.
Marcia.
Jan, this isn't about you.
It never is.
Snickers ran the "You're Not You When You're Hungry" ads. I think they actually still kind of run them. This is my favorite. Other than this, it's the one where Betty White gets tackled. Do you remember that one? And the whole idea is that you're not you when you're hungry. And any parents in the room who've had children know this, is that when your kids get hungry, they turn from nice, obedient children to little demons that want to tear your face off because they're hungry, they're starving. And it's like they've never eaten before. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But there's something funny about these commercials because, right, you're not you when you're hungry. Obviously, we are kind of like this sometimes, though. I think it hits on a little nerve of truth is that there's times when we're not quite ourselves. And maybe we're hungry or we're tired, right? Sometimes we get a little extra grumpy in the morning because we're just a little extra tired because we stayed up too late last night binge watching Netflix. Anybody else? Yes? Look, here's the deal, guys. This is second service. I get it. You got to sleep in. You're not as tired as first service, but here's a promise we got to make. We're not going to be quiet. When Joel says something funny, we're going to laugh, even if we don't think it's funny, because we love Joel. Everybody agree with this? Thank you. All right. I need to hear from you. This is a two-way preaching thing. I say something and you respond with something. There's a little grain of truth in these commercials, which is probably why it's so funny. Is that there's times when we don't act like ourselves. And it actually probably hits on something that's a little deeper than just a truth for a commercial. Have you ever been standing in front of the mirror and you don't like the person you see looking back at you? Have you ever experienced something and you look back and go, wait, that wasn't me? Have you ever acted in a way? Maybe you've lashed out in anger, frustration, or fear, and you go, that's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. Or maybe it's what other people recognize in you, or what other people think you are, who other people think you are. And you go, that's not me. That's not how I want to be perceived or known. In 2008, it was the summer after I graduated high school. I said 2008, it's really 2004. 2004 was the summer after I graduated high school and right before I went off to college. And I kind of got this temporary work for just a week right before I left to go move into the dorms. And the whole job was that me and a group of other kind of teenagers, we would go and we would open boxes. And in those boxes were other boxes. And in those other boxes were random products like mouthwash or shampoo or toothbrushes or something. And then we would take those, we would unbox everything and then put that into another box. I know it sounds maddening, right? We would unbox things and repackage them for bulk sale. So the whole job was to open boxes, put things in other boxes, and then tape those boxes up. And so there's a large group of us that was doing this, and I'll be honest, right? when you're doing that type of menial task, you've got to do something to keep engaged. And so for me, it was, I want to unbox and repackage more things than anybody else. Like, I want to be the best at opening and repackaging boxes, right? It's the little things that get you through the day, really, sometimes. And like, I was doing a great job at it. I was unboxing, putting things and reboxing them. We had all this cardboard that we needed to get rid of, so I took it to the place you're supposed to throw it away, and one of the boxes got jammed at the top. So I climbed into this dumpster to kind of mash it down. And while I was doing it, the foreman of kind of the whole operation came by and saw me. And apparently she thought I was just goofing off in a dumpster, because that's something people do. And she's like, hey, why are you doing that? And I'm like, the box got stuck. I was squishing it down. She was like, look, we hired you to work. I need you to work. And I'm going, excuse me? I didn't really say it. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm just trying to get this stuff down. We're about to get back to it. So I kind of shrugged it off and got back to it, and was getting back to work and unboxing and reboxing things. And I was doing pretty good. I was doing about 2 boxes for every 1 box everyone else on my team was doing. So I was happy with that. And so at that clip, though, like, I was a little tired, so I take just a quick break, grab a drink of water, and sit down for just a second. And while I'm sitting down, that same foreman, she comes up behind me again, doesn't say anything. And so I turned back and kind of like, oh, good gosh, what are you doing? She's like, hey, again, I thought you were supposed to be working. We are paying you money. Why are you not working? And I was like, I just took a second, like, I'm just calm down, like, I'm getting back to it. At the end of the day, the guy who owned the business kind of pulls me aside, and he's the one who got me the gig, and he was like, hey, look, my foreman said you weren't actually working, so we don't need you to come back tomorrow. And I was like, I was working more than anyone else. Like, she saw me when I was taking a quick break, and he was like, yeah, if she says you're not working, like, you can't come back. And it wasn't an official job, so I've never been fired from a job, but that's the closest I've ever come to being fired. And obviously, to this day, it bothers me, because I vividly remember these interactions. Because that's not who I was. It's actually not even who I was that day. It was just someone's poor perception of who I was. But to her, I was lazy. And that I wasn't worth the money they were spending on me. And to her, who I wasn't the product of my work. It was a misperception. I was not who I wanted to be known as. You see, none of us growing up want to be known by our mistakes or our misperceptions. In fact, often the plan that we have for our lives is not the exact same plan that God has for our lives. And I don't know many people who would choose God's plan, because there's some lessons you got to learn the hard way. In fact, my plan for my life was I was going to be wealthy, rich, no problems, have a fleet of jet skis that I could take out whenever I wanted. That wasn't God's plan for me. I have learned some hard lessons along the way. And this morning I want to look at the story of someone else whose plan probably didn't go like they thought it was going to. His life took a little bit of a different turn. If you have your Bibles, Luke chapter 8, we're going to jump in verse 26. Last week, we were reading about Jesus calming the storm as he and the disciples crossed the Sea of Galilee. Today I want to look at what happens when they got to the other side. So it says, then they sailed to the country of, and here's a fun word, right? And I've practiced this word, right? The country of Gerasenes, which is opposite of Galilee, right? Gerasenes is on the east coast of the Sea of Galilee. Most of Jesus' ministry happens around the Sea of Galilee. You have some in the north, a lot to the west, and kind of Jerusalem, a little bit down to the south. But this is really the only time in Scripture that we see Jesus in this specific area. And when Jesus had stepped out onto land, there he met a man from the city who had demons. As soon as Jesus steps out of the boat, there's a guy there who is demon-possessed. And this kind of is a memory when they see this man that sticks in their head, and you'll see why here in a second. Because for a long time, he had worn no clothes. He was naked. And had lived in a house, and had not lived in a house, but among the tombs. So when you step off a boat and see a naked guy who lives at a graveyard, you kind of remember like, oh gosh, there's a naked guy. He's living in a graveyard, right? This is this guy. He's possessed by demons. He's naked, which from the South, right? Naked means you're not clothed. Naked means you're not clothed and you're up to something, right? He's naked living in the tombs. That must be awkward funeral services, right? Right? You're trying to bury your loved one and all of a sudden a streaker comes through. Not necessarily what I want to happen at my funeral, just so we're clear. But here's a guy who probably when he was a kid never thought he was going to grow up to be demon-possessed naked living in a graveyard. I don't think that was part of his plan. If it is, he's different than any other person I may have ever met in my entire life. But you see, where he was a result of the circumstances in his life. And today we're going to talk about circumstances. Because often our circumstances put us in a place where we never thought we would be, or they define us or give us value in certain areas that we never would think would have value. And our circumstances, we often let define who we are. Because in our mind, who we are is a result of our circumstances, not our desires, but our identity itself. If I were to ask you this morning, who are you? What would your response be? Would it be wife, husband, mother? Would it be your job? Would it be something you've accomplished? Something you like to do? Where is your identity based in? If you ask me, who are you, right? My answers are probably usually like, well, I'm a dad, I'm a father, I'm a pastor. And while there's some truth to those circumstances that have given me identity, the truth is above all of that, I'm a child of God. Right? I'm a follower of Jesus. But that even for me wouldn't be my first response. I would let my circumstances be where I get my value and definition, right? And for many of us, who we are is a result of those circumstances. And often that isn't what we wanted. That's not what we wish, it's just who we are. I am broken. I am messed up. I'm worthless. This week I had the opportunity to meet with a group of pastors, and we brought in a speaker to kind of to help us learn and understand and grow in a certain area. And one of the things that she's a therapist, and one of the things she told us is that for most people, we have this like gut level lie that we believe about ourselves. We may not even want to believe. We may not tell it to other people. It's the lie we tell ourselves when we look in the mirror and are unhappy with what we see. For me, my lie is that I'm a fraud. In fact, when I've had bad days or I'm anxious or I've had panic attacks or just been an all-around jerk to someone, right? I'll look in the mirror and go, you are so fake. Like you're a pastor, you fraud. Why should anybody believe you? It's probably why I always want to justify myself with supporting evidence. It's why I keep going back and getting more degrees from universities. Because I have this deep sense that I have to prove that I'm not a fraud. But here's the thing, right? My identity as somebody who's fraudulent is not based off the sacrifice of Jesus. It is based off the lie of the enemy. It is based off of circumstances where someone hasn't believed me. Even all the way back to this lady who believed me I was something I wasn't. And at a gut level, right? And that's even hard for me to admit, right? It's not something I want to say out loud. So if I was going to ask you the same question, when you're at your worst and you look in the mirror, what is the lie the enemy's whispering? What is the identity he tries to give you that you may associate with, even though you think you know better, but it's still that gut level sense that is not the truth? Because I think we all have it. And I think it's different. It may be inadequate, maybe loser, maybe fraud, it may be something else. But you see, the circumstances in our lives, the good things and a lot of the bad things, the sin, the heartache, the brokenness, those circumstances will tell us who we are, even if who we are isn't true. But you see, you and I, we have a God-given identity that is more than what others think about us, and it's more than often we think about ourselves. Your value, your identity isn't based on those circumstances. And I want to look at why not this morning. Because when we understand our identity through our circumstances, we're always going to fail. But here's the thing, right? We understand our identity. Well, at least we think we do through what's happened to us. But God establishes our identity through his circumstances. So we think we understand it through our circumstances, and God goes, no. I have set different circumstances in motion that change who you are. Right? The death of Jesus on the cross and his resurrection, right, changes who you are. And we see this, even an interaction with Jesus changes the identity of this man who is possessed by demons. So let's look at this for a few minutes today and understand what he experienced and maybe try to learn and grow ourselves this morning. Sound good? All right. So when he saw Jesus, the demon-possessed man, he cried out and fell down before him and said with a loud voice, "What you do to me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God, I beg you, do not torment me." For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many a time it had seized him, and he was kept under guard and bound in chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the desert. Right? So this demon-possessed man, right, the demon would seize him and he would do something, I guess, more inappropriate than run around naked in the cemetery. And they would actually arrest this guy, right? They would put him in chains, and I don't know if the demons gave him like superpowers and he broke out. Somehow he slipped out of containment and he would flee naked into the desert, probably screaming and flailing his arms. Ah! At least that's how I imagine the story going. But it's interesting, right? Because this is what Jesus says right after that. Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. So there's a few things I think I want to break down in this passage and look at this morning. The first one is this, that the demons in the man recognize the authority of Jesus to change their circumstance, right? Demons recognize that. They said, they begged him. Look at this again. I'll go back to this passage. Sorry, I got to click all the way back on this. I should have had another slide, right? "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" Right? These are the demons speaking. They recognize the authority of Jesus and beg him not to torment them. Demons in the man recognize the authority of Jesus to change their circumstance. If demons can recognize the power of Jesus to change their circumstance, don't you think we should be able to understand the power of Jesus to change our circumstance? Don't you think we should believe that? The demons even called him Son of the Most High God. They recognized who he was. They recognized the power of God because he was standing right in front of them. The other thing that we see in the passage is the man who was possessed was identified by what was possessing him. It's interesting. This week I did a deep dive. I even opened like my Greek lexicon and was looking through these passages because when I see this interaction, I see Jesus ask the question, asked him his name. And most scholars believe that this whole conversation happened just between Jesus and the demons. But they didn't ask them their names, even though it's already established that demons, plural, are possessing the man. He asked him his name. And while it's either Jesus is speaking directly to the demon or Jesus is speaking for the man, regardless of which one it is, the demons possessing him are the ones who respond. And they say that their name is Legion, for many demons are possessing him. For someone who grew up in an ancient Middle Eastern context, especially a Jewish man, right, they would understand that during a Roman occupation, a legion of Roman soldiers is about 5,000 to 6,000 soldiers. And so when it says a legion, right, he said his name was Legion, he identifies that he is possessed by thousands of demons. Mary Magdalene was possessed by 7. This guy, thousands of demons are possessing him. And his identity, we don't know the man's original name. We just know he's identified by the thousands of demons that possessed him, by the thousands of circumstances that were afflicting him. Probably the circumstances that were not in his life plan. That's where he found his identity. It was what happened to him, not who he was. Here's the hard part, guys. I don't think that you and I are that different from this. Because I think that for most of us, we find our identity in the thousands instead of the one. So there are thousands of circumstances that define you, lots of things that go into making you who you are, but there is one person that changed it all for you. There are thousands of situations that we've been in. We've been in heartbreak. We've had medical diagnosis that we hate. We've been in jobs that have been maybe great, but we've been in others that have just been crippling for us. We've had circumstances that we would not choose. We've been trapped to sin. And even though we've tried to find freedom again and again, it seems like we keep being pulled back into this, right? All of these thousands of things, these circumstances that define who we are. And we look to those thousands instead of the one. But identity in Jesus, identity in the one, is in the one that has the power to change everything. To change the bad. To show you your value is not in those things, but in something so much more. It's a culmination of decisions, interactions, choices, sins, trauma that too often we look to for who we are. I was a youth pastor in West Texas for a long time, and one of the things that we saw is every now and then you would get that kind of stereotypical dad who told their son that they were going to be a football star and was convinced their son was the next great wide receiver and he was going to be starting for the Dallas Cowboys. And all through middle school, it's football, football, football. Football controls their lives in high school. They just knew their kids were going to go D1. And out of running ministries for thousands of kids over a decade, I think I maybe had 2 students ever go D1. But when kids would hear this over and over and over again from their dads, like, hey, this is who you're going to be, 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 and it doesn't happen for them, right? They don't know what to do. And it's kind of a ridiculous example that unfortunately is too true. But I think for us, sometimes that we've heard those same things about ourselves over and over and over and over again. Maybe it's a lie that we tell ourselves when we're looking in the mirror. Maybe it's something that one of your parents told you about how you're not good enough or how you should be different over and over and over again, and it sunk in. Maybe it was a coworker. Maybe it was that friend who always made that joke that you kind of went, ha, and laughed on the surface, but inside it just killed you just a little bit every time you heard it, right? It's that repetition, those thousands over and over again that becomes seated, and then we believe those truths about who we are. For this man, it was the demons, it was the thousands again and again and again and again. That he was trapped. But then something else happened. You see, Jesus devalued those demons. Similarly, as he can devalue all those negative circumstances that define us. Look at what it continues. This is where the story gets weird, by the way, right? And they, meaning the demons, legion, right, begged him not to command them to depart into the abyss. And now a large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him to let them enter these. So Jesus gave them permission to go into the pigs. And the demons came out of the man and entered the pigs, and a herd rushed down a steep bank into the lake and drowned. Yes, this is weird. Somewhere in the Sea of Galilee, there's a whole bunch of pig bones. And it's not because of the barbecue. It's because some demons drowned as they were possessing pigs. Up there, right, there's lots of weird passages in the Bibles. You know, there's one part where donkeys talk. There's another where she-bears come out and maul 42 youth for making fun of somebody who's bald. Youth, pay attention to that. Don't do that. Right? I don't know why all the weird passages have to do with animals for some reason. But, this one's up there with the strangeness. So I want to break this down for a little bit for us to understand the impact this has. Because one, again, the demons are recognizing the authority of Jesus, and they are frightened about what Jesus would do to them, right? They're begging him, don't send us into nothingness. Don't send us into the abyss. Let us go into the pigs instead. But here's what we know. Most of us know about Jewish cultures. They don't eat pork, right? It's not kosher. So most Jewish men and women don't eat pork. But it goes beyond that. There's a lot of things that aren't kosher. Shrimp's not kosher. But pigs are something more. They're viewed as vile, as disgusting, as something that actually makes other things unclean and dirty. In Revelation, a pig is used as a symbol to represent defiling of the temple. And so a pig is not just something they don't eat. It is something that would disgust them, that they have no value for. And so when Jesus sends the demons into the pigs, Jesus devalues the identity of legion by sending them there. He is showing the man that they have no value. They are not how Jesus views the man. They are nothing compared to who God created this man to be. Jesus elevates the value of the man by removing the false identity. And hear me when I say this. He does the same thing for you. Your circumstances are not who you are. The bad things that happen to you are not who you are. But when we give those things value, when we give them worth that they don't have and attach our identity to them, we are devaluing the sacrifice of Jesus. Because we're saying, hey, I know Jesus died for me, but this over here, this is who I am. I've got to be this because all these bad things happen to me, so I'll always be a fraud. When Jesus is going, no, I died, so that's not who you are. You don't have to find your value in that. I'm giving you so much more value. One of my favorite shows, and I would say to watch on TV, but I don't actually just watch the clips on Facebook and on YouTube. But I love watching like the clips, the segments of Antique Roadshow. The other day I was watching and this guy brings this item that was like this crystal carved like thing and that I think he kept up in his attic. It was like, hey, it's passed down for a few generations. And the guy looked at it and was like, yeah, this thing is so rare. It's a Fabergé and it's worth over $1 million. And I was like, over $1 million? What? And like another guy like bought these paintings at a garage sale, spent like $10 on them, and he's had them for a while. He just kind of liked the way they looked, but figured he'd see if they're worth any money because there was a name on them. Turns out they were painted by Picasso. He got them for $10 at a garage sale. Right? Those are cool, right? That's why I keep watching the videos. But then there's the other ones. Right? It's the people who have this thing that is like this value, like this treasured family heirloom they just know is going to like be worth all the money in the world. And they bring it and like the experts look through their monocles because they're a little high class. And they're like, oh, well, no, this is, you see here where it says made in China? Like that's not very valuable. That's not what you think it is. And some people respond like, oh, shucks, oh, well, it's still cool to me and my family, okay. But then it's the other ones, though. It's the ones who look at the experts and go, no, you're wrong. And go, well, I think you're wrong. No, this has to be worth more than you say it is. And they deny the truth that is right in front of them because they have believed this lie. Something that is untrue, they have made true, and they base the value of their precious items on this untruth that when they see the truth, they can't comprehend it. It's too difficult for them. And they look at the expert who are all like, you have to believe him because they talk in British accents and are all snooty, right? And they go, no, you're wrong. And he's like, well, whatever, but you're not going to get any money for that, right? We do the same thing when we believe these lies or we let these circumstances be what provide us our identity. Your identity is not based on what has happened to you. And the longer you latch on to that, the more you will miss how valuable you are to Jesus. You were so valuable that he died for you. You're so valuable he didn't stay dead. He came back to lead the church. That is your value. And it can change everything. When the herdsmen saw what had happened, I'm sure at some level they were mad, right? They fled and told it to the city and in the country. And then the people went out to see what had happened. And they came to Jesus, right? So the news about what had happened spreads, and all these people then come out to see for themselves what had happened. And they came to Jesus and found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. And those who had seen it told them how the demon-possessed man had been healed. And then all the people of the surrounding country of Gerasenes asked him to depart from them, and they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. And the man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him. He begged Jesus, let me follow you. But Jesus sent him away, saying, return to your home and declare how much God has done for you. And he went away proclaiming throughout the whole city how much Jesus had done for him. I love the end of this story. You see, you had a man who was defined by what was possessing him, who was defined by all the things that were afflicting him. And he had an interaction with Jesus. He had an interaction with God. And it changed everything. And when he asked if he could follow Jesus, he's told to go home and give a testimony of God's power. Hey, go tell other people your new identity. Go share it with them. Go tell everyone else what God has done in your life. One of my favorite things about testimonies, why I actually love when we can show a testimony, is because what it shows is that God can do something powerful in someone else's life, and God can do something powerful in your life too. He can give you the new identity. So Jesus gives him an assignment. Hey, go tell everybody who you are, that you're not the naked guy in the cemetery, that you're someone who's transformed by the power of God. And his circumstances were different. Their circumstances were changed. But here's the crazy thing. Even in the middle of his worst, even when all of the demons were possessing him, that man was always loved by God. And he was always a child of God. But he needed to experience the power of God to realize that his circumstances were not the same as his identity. Hear me. Your circumstances are not who you are. Your identity is based in the sacrifice of Jesus. And when you experience the power of God in your life, you can see what he's done for you and why he's worth following and why it's worth telling other people about what God has done for you. Because your circumstances do not define you. It is not who you are. Who the world sees you are is not who you are. Your identity is in Jesus and in Jesus alone. Does it mean that that makes life easy? Sorry, no. I'm sure it was hard for the man who was running around naked in the cemetery for all those years to go to family functions. Oh, here comes Uncle Jimmy. He was the crazy naked guy in the cemetery. Is he going to wear clothes? I think so. I don't know. Doesn't mean life's easy. But again, your value is not what other people think about you. That's what Jesus has done for you. So this is what I want to do today. Josh, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to come up. I want to end today by singing a song, right? A proclamation. And the song is a song where we're going to declare that we are children of God. We're going to declare that our identity is in Jesus. And we're going to sing that for just a few minutes today as we end our service. And in this, I want you to listen to the words as we sing. Because the words of the song talk about who the Son has set free is free indeed. We find freedom in Jesus because of the sacrifice that he made for us. We are not trapped by the circumstances, by an identity that is based on what has happened to us. We find who we are as children of God because of Jesus.